Welcome to the Home Education with Ease podcast. I'm your host, Christine Furman, a homeschool mom, entrepreneur, and educator with over 20 years of experience in the areas of elementary and special education. It's my mission to help you create lifelong learners and embrace a holistic approach to education at home. I'll be sharing practical strategies, inspiration, and resources to support your family. Whether you're a stay-at-home mom, a business owner, or balancing work and homeschool, you're in the right place to connect with a community that values education just as much as you do. Join us each week as we ditch the stress, embrace the joy of learning, and set your family up for a lifetime of success. Hello, friend. Welcome back to another episode of the Home Education with Ease podcast. I'm your host, Christine Furman, your home education expert. I first want to just say thank you so much for being here, taking time out of your busy day to spend a little bit of time with me this week. So today we are going to be talking about something that I have had many conversations with other moms about, and it is something that has been very relevant in my own life. We're going to talk about grief, and it may be different than what you think. So I know for me, when I think of grief, I think of I'm losing someone. When someone passes, you are grieving. Well, we're going to talk about grief in a different way today, where you might not be losing someone physically, but you might be losing a version of someone, like our children or even ourselves. So we're going to talk all about that this week. I'm so excited to dive in. As I was just voice messaging with a friend, which I don't know if you are like this, so I would love to know, in the Facebook group, Home Education with Ease Facebook group. Come over there, find me, and let me know this, or find me on any social media platform. I want to know if you send voice messages to friends like podcast episodes. So you guys know me here. I've got lots to say. There's always a story. There's always something going on. Well, I have a list of friends that as I go on my morning walk every morning, I voice message them every morning. So I have this like running list of friends that we're voice messaging. And when I go on my walk, that's when I catch up with them. I'm either listening to their voice message or I respond back with my own. And sometimes they're like 10-minute long voice messages. I mean, guys, and then a 10-minute message back from them, that's like a podcast interview, right? So as I was voice messaging a friend and we were talking about this topic, I was like, oh my goodness, this would be so good for a podcast, because I have thought about this before, and I've started this new health journey. So it's all going to tie in here. And I was like, this would be so good. We need to talk about this. So I'm excited to share, kind of my version of this. And I would love to hear your version of it, because I know as moms, we go through so many stages. And I don't think it's something that is talked about enough, where we as moms, we have to release different phases of our children's lives. And we just are expected to move on to the next one and move on to the next one and move on to the next one. Well, what about all these phases behind us? Some of the phases we may be excited for, right? So potty training, like, can't wait to get that over with. So then that way we don't have to lug the diaper bag around. However, yes, they're independent. However, now they're growing up and they don't need a diaper change anymore, So yes, there's that like, yes, it's exciting, but then there's also the fact of like, oh my goodness, like what? They don't need us for that anymore. So we're going to talk all about that today and all the different phases. So whatever is coming to your mind right now of like, what are you grieving? How have your children grown? And maybe what is something that you are grieving? I want to know about it. So one, I want to know if you respond to messages like a podcast, whether it's a text message, a voice message, or like a messenger message, or Marco Polo, like Guys, I probably have so much content throughout my voice messages that I send to friends, but I want to know, is that something that you guys do? And then also, as we go through this, first thing I want to know is, what is the first area that you feel like you're grieving or you have grieved? And then the other thing that I want to know is, what do you think where do you think this is going, right? As we go through the episode, sorry, I lost my train of thought there for 1 second. I wanted to make sure my audio was good and I totally lost my train of thought. For 1 second, or as we go through this episode, I want you to kind of think about, how has that changed? And share some more of those grieving phases. So I recently started a journey of homeopathy. I started it in January of 2026, and I had no idea about it per se, like what it actually was. But I was already using homeopathy in the way that I, shared, or I gave my kids medicine, or as we went through illnesses, different things like that. I really was on that trajectory already. I just didn't really understand it or really even know that that's what I was doing. So I then started working with my homeopathy lady. I know there's a better term for that, but that I started working with her because as we were going through these classes, she would ask me, "Where is your grief?" And I said, "I don't know. I have no idea." Because the whole premise, I don't want to say the whole premise, but what I gather from it is your body, and we know this from other things as well, but your body holds on to emotions. And if you go through an experience, it may not release that emotion, or that trauma, right? Think about your nervous system. I've been talking about nervous system work. I've been talking about, all of these different pieces and aspects. I really think because I'm in this phase of, I want to heal my body. I don't want to look for a quick fix. I don't want to, just go after the next big thing. I want to know how I can actually heal my body. I want to get to the root of it all. I've had many people as guests on here talking about the root of it all. I've gone through many different strategies and techniques and things like that. And when I started this homeopathy class, it was just another avenue to look at and say, oh, okay, I eat pretty well. I work out. I could be more consistent, right? I sleep pretty well. There are things that we can look at and say, yeah, that's okay. It's not perfect, but I don't feel like it's way out of whack, right? But I still don't feel 100%. I still don't know what is going on. And that's kind of how I was. I was like, I still feel like something is kind of missing. So as I started working with her and she would ask me that question, I was like, grief, I don't know. I feel pretty happy, most of the time. I feel like things are going well. Yes, I'm stressed about the business, or yes, stressed about educating my kids, or, just that everyday life stress, nothing that I felt like was overwhelming, and as I kept working with her, so it's been a couple months now, I have started to realize a few things. One, I had to ask myself, what is grief? Again, we think of when we lose someone that we love, right? And so I looked it up. So here is the definition of what came up for me. Grief is the emotional, mental, physical, and sometimes spiritual response to a loss or significant change. So that's it. To a loss or a significant change. It does not mean that it's only in relation to death. So that's what it says next. It says, most people think of grief only in relation to death. I know that was me. That was kind of my thought. Okay, what else could I be grieving? It said, but grief can happen anytime we lose something important to us, including the death of a loved one, I know that within the past, I think it was 2021, my grandfather passed. I was pretty close to him. We lived on the same road my entire childhood life, all the way until I moved. There were 3 houses on our road, and he lived in the front house and we lived in the back house. So from the time I was a baby until the time I moved, I was on the same road as my grandfather. And I felt like I had a pretty deep connection with him. So there was the death of a loved one in 2021. We moved in 2020 and we moved to Georgia. That was a big change, right? I'm getting ahead of myself here. So as we go through this list, right? So the death of a loved one, a miscarriage or infertility journey. Sorry. I had a miscarriage, and some of you may know this. Some of you may not. I shared my story here. I had a miscarriage before I had Ella, and that was hard. That was something that, again, I feel like even at that point, that would have been in 2013, I think, or 2014. I'm sorry. We got married in 2013. I had a miscarriage in February of 2014, and then I had Ella in 2015. So that was something that I definitely did not talk about it as much in that moment. And a lot of people in my circle at that time they had not experienced a miscarriage. So I feel like once you experience it, then you can understand it so much differently than if you have never experienced that. And maybe that's not always the case, but that was kind of what I was experiencing as I was going through it. Divorce or relationship changes. I know within my marriage, we had a little bit of a tough spot there. Probably that after the kids were born for a couple years, until we moved here. So I would say probably 5 years, 3 to 5 years. I don't know. A move to a new city. We did that in 2020. A job or a career change. I left my teaching career and I started a business, but actually even before that, I started working for a magazine. I was raising the kids. So I went from working full time to trying to work for someone else while also trying to start a business, while also raising my kids while my husband was traveling. That was a lot, right? A child growing up and becoming more independent. That is what we're really going to be focusing on today, because that is what hit me so hard. A change in health or abilities. I would say for me, this is not a prominent one for me, but I know that over the past few years, my health has changed. Hormones are kicking in. I turned 40 and people say things change at that, mark in your life. And I'm refusing to believe that, right? I don't want things to change. So now I'm learning to adapt and figure out how I can make that change smoother and still support my body. So I've been working with a team of professionals. I constantly am reaching out, finding out how can I support my body, so then that way I still can feel like I'm 27, like I like to say. Even though I know I'm not, even though the pictures show that I'm not 27 anymore, I still want to believe that, right? So that was a change in my health, but I don't feel like that was as drastic for me. The end of a season of life, letting go of expectations or dreams we once had. So all of these things, right? Most people think of grief only in relation to death, but grief can happen anytime we lose something important to us, including any of those things. And as I just shared with you, I can relate to all of them, truly. Letting go of expectations. I know that is a hard one for me. I have high expectations. And when things don't go the way I expect them to go or think that they should happen this way, I kind of lose it a little bit, right? It's just not and I try not to say it's my way or the highway, because I try not to do that. But if I have an expectation of the way I want something to be or look, and that's what I think it should do, that's the way I think the outcome should be. So I'm working through that. I promise you, I'm still working through that. Dreams we once had, that could be anything, right? So many things here. And grief, let's talk about this a little bit. Grief is often described as feeling sadness, but it can also look like anger, confusion, anxiety, loneliness, relief, guilt, exhaustion, numbness, difficulty concentrating. One thing that surprises many is that grief can coexist with gratitude and joy. So this is where we're going to talk about that transition for our kids, right? We may be incredibly proud of our kid. They are becoming so independent. They are just crushing it, right? I watch my kids and I'm just so proud. I am beaming with the things that they are learning and they are picking up and they are doing. I can't even explain, like Ella totally having a full-on business plan, like podcast episodes, YouTube channel, social media ideas, creating content on Canva, putting out new ideas constantly to add services to her business. I am blown away by that. And then Alex, on the other hand, he is becoming this little chef that is just outstanding to me. And the way he works in the kitchen and he cuts up his vegetables and he plates the food. And the other day we were playing catchphrase and one of the answers was bay leaf. And he got it and he was like, I know my spices. And I could not stop laughing because I was like, it's so true. Like, I'm just so proud of you knowing things like that, I didn't know these things whenever I was their age. And just watching them accomplish so many amazing things. However, the grief comes in when I grieve the earlier version of them. I don't want to cry. I didn't think I was going to cry. But it is something that is very emotional because there is a version of them that I grieve, that I miss. They don't need me as much as they used to anymore. One of the silly little things is their kitchen, the play kitchen that is in our kitchen. And I've had it since Ella was, 18 months old, whatever. And I can't get rid of it. Now, I do host events and I do have kids that are always in my house that are much younger. And that is always the go-to that people play with. So that is a reason I won't get rid of it now. And it will eventually go into my academy at some point because it was my kids. And now I get to use that and share that experience and that love for learning how to play in a kitchen with other students. So, but we have tried to get rid of this kitchen multiple times. And every time we go through it and every time we set it up, I cry because all I can see is this picture that I have of Ella and Alex in their little chef hat. And Ella had a little Minnie Mouse apron. And their little voices. I'm like, Mommy, I made this for you. And come sit down and let me, give you a meal or whatever it is, right? I have to let go of that version of them and look at the version that they are now. Because I can be excited for them, but I can also be grieving this moment, these moments of when they were younger. And I say it all the time. I say, oh, I miss when they were 3 and 5, 4 and 6. Like, I loved those years. I don't know, maybe that's why I still teach, right? 7 and under with the EduPlay Learning Little Learners summer series that I'm doing right now, because I love that age. I love interacting. I love watching their face light up when they learn something new or when they tell me something that they've learned. Like, that makes me so excited. So I do miss that stage for my own kids. However, I also say to that, right? Oh, I miss when they were 3 and 5. However, I'm so proud of who they are right now, of how independent they are, because now they can make me dinner. Now they can, make sales and interact with adults and all of these things, that I have to let go of that version of them and say, you know what, that was great. And I enjoyed it. Even though there are moments when I say, gosh, I wish I could go back. Have you ever thought that? Have you ever said, man, I wish I could go back to that stage and do it again? Or, nope, don't want to do that again, right? I feel good where we're at. I would love to know. I would really love to know your stories in the Home Education with Ease Facebook group. I would love to know how this is hitting you and if this is like relatable for you right now. Because as I was talking to my friend, it was so evident that I was like, that is what I'm grieving. I am grieving the stages of my children, the younger versions. But I am so incredibly proud, right? So I have to let that version go and say, you know what? I was there. Even though I feel like I want to do it again and maybe I wasn't as present as I am or as I could be, right? Because here's the thing. As we age, as we're not in the chaos of it all, we are learning new things. We are able to heal from trauma or, heal our nervous system. I am way more regulated now than I was when they were 3 and 5. And I don't think I was so unregulated, but I was also like just trying to figure it out. So yeah, of course, as we look back, we can say, oh man, I wish I could do that again because I could do it differently. And whatever differently looks like, I could do it differently. So today, I am releasing those younger versions and saying, yes, I enjoyed every moment with them. I have thousands of pictures showing me that I was present with them. I was there with them. My mind may have been thinking about a million other things, but I was there and they saw that. And there were some situations, because again, our body is holding on to these emotions, right? So there were a few situations that as I'm thinking about these things that came up for me. Ella, I've shared before, Ella has had trouble sleeping for years. And one of these situations that came up for me was a night that I drove from my sister's to where Dan was staying in a hotel. So I don't know if he was working for out of town, he was out of town working, and Ella and I went with him, and then I happened to go see my sister, and then in the evening I came back to the hotel, right? So I drove like 3 hours by myself with her, and it was dark, and I was like so grateful that she was quiet. So she did fall asleep. But then whenever I got to the hotel, it was late, and now she wouldn't go back to sleep. She was like a toddler, because I definitely did not have Alex, but if I did, I would have been pregnant with him maybe. So she was young. She didn't know, right? Dan was trying to sleep when he worked outages. He would work 12 to 14-hour days, 6 weeks in a row, and literally go to work, get up early, go to work, eat dinner, and then go to bed. And I knew that's what was happening for him. That's where he was in this cycle. And I just wanted her to go to bed so bad. Like, one, I don't want you to interrupt daddy's sleep. And two, now I'm exhausted, right? I just drove all that way. I'm tired. Like, please, please go to sleep. And I'm sure I wasn't my best self. And I had to bring that situation up with Ella. She doesn't remember it, but I did. And here's the thing, her body could remember it. It's an emotion. It was an emotional time for both of us that maybe her body was holding on to that. I don't know. But I talked to her about it. I explained the situation. We prayed about it. I asked for forgiveness and grace and just a release to say, you know what? We don't need to hold those emotions anymore. I think it's been helpful. She's been able to sleep a little bit better. She still has her evenings where it's harder for her to fall asleep, but it's like things like that. Like when you start thinking about your kids and you start thinking about situations with them over their childhood, were there any moments that you can go back and say, you know what, I'm sorry. I was not my best self. Please forgive me. Give me grace. And of course, the Lord is forgiving us and giving us grace constantly. But I think also it's good to kind of like let that out. Like even me sharing this with you and recognizing that I am and had been grieving the younger versions of my kids. I remember Ella, no longer wanting baby dolls and Disney princess stuff. I was so emotional, and I remember, and I wish I would have taken pictures, but I remember her first room that we had in Pittsburgh in McLean, or in Carnegie. I remember it had, pink walls and crisscross and her bed and the pink bookshelf, like everything was pink. We got a lot of hand-me-downs from my aunts that had all girls. And of course, my favorite color is pink. So there was lots of pink. And she was young. She didn't know, right? But then as we moved here to our Georgia house, then she started to realize, she started to come into who she was, right? Not who I wanted her to be or who I, kind of made that room to be. So we painted the room pink when we got here. And it was not long after that she asked for it to be painted teal. And slowly, one item at a time, things started to be removed from her room. She had a huge wooden dollhouse that my aunt gifted us. She had a dollhouse bookshelf. She had all the Disney princesses and everything, right? And slowly she was like, I don't want this anymore. I don't play with this anymore. And one by one, all of those things started to be removed from her room. And it was like, oh my goodness, how do you go from, in your mind, she's still, this toddler. And I can very vividly see the crib and then the toddler bed. And how did we get here to a queen size bed? Now we have a desk and a dresser and, all of her sewing things, a sewing machine and all of these things that she's where she's at now in life, right? So I had to just kind of let that version go. And the same thing goes for Alex. It was the same exact thing. So I had situations with him that I had to talk to him about and say, you know what, I wasn't my best self, and please forgive me and let's pray about it. So it was the same. It was very similar. And, it was the same thing for him. Superheroes, or no, I would say first Paw Patrol. Once we got rid of all the Paw Patrol stuff, we had so much Paw Patrol stuff. I was like, oh my goodness, we are here. We are at this stage for him, and then the superheroes and just one stage at a time. And I know it's going to continue as they keep growing, But I remember too, even looking in the back of the car, even recently, looking back and realizing that neither one of them need to be in a car seat anymore. And it's like, wow, where did my babies go? And being okay with that, with letting go of those younger years and looking forward to the next years, right? And there's nothing wrong with saying, oh, I missed that. But you know what? Where we're at right now and where we're going is going to be even better, because this was great and I loved it. And I'm so proud of you. And I'm so, honored that I get to be your mom and I get to watch every stage of this. But now I get to watch you move on to the next stage and the next stage and the next stage. And friends, as we are talking about this, I also want to share that this month I'm going to be sharing about helping raise kind, independent, confident kids. That is my mission. How can I help you so you can teach your kids, so you can raise them to be kind and confident and independent? So each week over this month, we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to wrap up with a phenomenal interview. So just stay tuned for that, because that really goes along here, right? We can grieve these stages, but then we also want to make sure we're preparing them for the next stages of life. So if you're feeling like this is great, but I don't know if I'm preparing them, I don't know if they're ready for the next stages, let's talk, because that is really where my mission is. I want to help you help raise your kids in a kind, confident, independent way. So all of those things, if that is something, anything that you're like, I need a little help there, let's talk. So I want you to think also about, where can we take a moment and pause to really enjoy the moments, so we don't keep looking back and saying, man, I wish I was present. No, do that now, because that's what they're going to remember. So the other day I was working and I came down for lunch, and we have lunch. And I was like, you know what? Before I go back up to work, guys, you want to play a game? They're like, yeah, I want to play a game. We pulled out Uno. We played a couple rounds of Uno and they were ecstatic. A different card game, or, right? 15, 20 minutes. We're filling up their cup so then that way we can go back and do our work. We're being present and in the moment with them, and then we can get back to our tasks. One of the moments I recognized the other day was we were all in the kitchen making dinner together. And I just paused and I just took in that moment. There may not be as many pictures, there may not be as many videos as there were when they were little and saying the cutest little things with their cute little voice. Right now, you have to take those snapshots in your mind so you can remember them and then tell them to the kids. They want to know. And I did. I stopped right there in my tracks and I said, guys, this right here, I want to remember this. It looks different. We may not play toys together anymore, but we can all cook together now. We can all play a game together. We can go play basketball together, sing a song together, right? It looks different, and that's okay. It's allowed to look different. We want it to look different. We don't want to keep them. I mean, I know I would love to have that, younger phase, but we want to let that go. And we want to say, you know what? It's okay. We enjoyed it. And now we're on to this next phase. So how can we enjoy every minute with them? What does that look like for you and your family? Does that look like a game throughout the day? Like I said, 10, 15 minutes. You could be in between calls, and I did this. I was in between 2 podcast interviews, and I said, all right, guys, tell me what's going on. Let's talk, right? I could have easily continued working. 1, I would have been exhausted after that. 2, I wanted to see them. I wanted to, be present in the moment. So then that way they knew that they are top of mind. My work is not the priority. They are. I do my work for them. I work from home. I connect with so many other families so that I can be with my kids. That was the mission of it all. How can I educate my own kids, help educate others whilst being with my kids? That's what I built here. That's what I've created, because that was always the goal from the beginning. And they need to remember that they are their priority. So tell them how much you love spending time with them. They're getting a little older, so the hand holding is a little few and far between, but man, when it happens, I just soak it in. When the hugs happen, when the I love yous, I don't want to say they're gone or they're missing or anything like that, but I pause now because I know that there are the last of things, not the last of I love yous or hugs or hand holding, right? Maybe hand holding. But there's going to be a time, just like the last time that they rode in their car seat. I don't remember when that was. It just happened to be like, okay, now you don't need a car seat. And I was like, what? How did we get here? When's the last time you changed their diaper? Like, what? I didn't know that was the last time. What about the last time you picked them up? Obviously, you could tell it's still something that is emotional for me, and allowing those emotions you feel those emotions for sure. Talk to them, talk to your spouse. You can talk to me, and we can release that and not grieve it, but know that we can let it go. And we can look forward to the new things, right? It's not always about, death, right? Grief is not always about death. It's loving so much that it's often hard to let go. And that is so true. It's hard to let go of those years. But I'm so grateful for every single one of them. And I can't wait to see what God has in store for their life and how He continues to shape them and mold them. So I would love to know, where are some areas in your life that you feel this? That you're like, yes, I feel that. I feel that grief. And it could be any of those that I shared with you, right? It may not have to be your kids growing up and becoming more independent. It may be that, right? But it could be something else that we talked about at the beginning: a miscarriage, a divorce, a relationship change, a move, a job or career change, a change in your health, letting go of expectations or dreams. I would love to know. I would love to know where you're at in your journey and how I can support you. And if there is any way that I could just lift you up and say, you know what, you're doing amazing, because you are absolutely doing amazing. And I'm right here to walk alongside you every single step of the way. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you for tuning in to the Home Education with Ease podcast. I hope today's episode left you feeling empowered and ready to take the next steps on your home education journey. Your support means the world to me. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. For even more resources, be sure to join the free Facebook group, Home Education with Ease, and visit eduplaylearning.com to explore our programs and subscription kits. You can find the links and any other links mentioned in this episode in the show notes below. Remember, you're not alone. This community is here to support you every step of the way.